All right. In this video, we're going to go over what Atomicchild means, the actual name. People ask me that all the time when I'm out doing markets or new customers. It's kind of a weird name. So we're going to go over the origins of that, and then we're just going to kind of go over the origins of basically kind of as me as an artist, and then slowly moving into as a brand. So where did the name Atomicchild come from? So when I was in college, I just started out using my own name, Jimmy Bryant. Pretty generic name when you start doing web searches, especially in 2021. But back in the early 2000s, almost all artists had some kind of a name and a number combo. Like that was just what everybody did. Everybody came up with artist names for the website. So I had to create a new website. My favorite artist in college was Keith Haring, and he was a pop artist. Really famous in the 80s. So he had a painting called The Radiant Baby. And so I just kind of took that and I was like, oh, Atomicchild, kind of based off that. And you can kind of see what that looks like. Right here is this little image. You can see he's painted this a million different times, but that's kind of the genesis of where that came from. And I've kept it all these years. Kind of surprised, you know, it's an odd name, but I'm really glad that we've stuck with it. It stands out. You know, every brand these days is something Supply Co. or Gear, or, you know, it just kind of gets lost. So Atomicchild really stands out from the crowd as far as the name goes. And it starts with an A, so we're at the beginning of most things. So I kind of have the, you know, typical story as everybody else when they're kids. Like you just start drawing. I was born in Maine. My dad was in the Air Force. We grew up way up on the border of Maine. But so I was drawing as a little kid. You know, I did like contests and stuff. I remember my parents telling me like one of my drawings got accepted and like sent all around like Maine. And I think it was in kindergarten. So like I've always been drawing. You know, as I got older, more towards middle school, high school, I got introduced to comic books, skateboard art. Even though I grew up on a farm in rural South Dakota, there was no way I could do skateboarding. Really, you know, basically comic books, The Simpsons were super popular. Like those are the kind of references that I had living on a farm. My best friend's dad was a sculptor, so he was an artist as well. My best friend was an artist. So I kind of was you know, kind of just deeply involved in that, surrounded by art. You know, obviously you graduate high school and you're kind of like, well, what are you gonna do with your life? I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do with my life, just like everybody else. But I knew I wanted to do something creative. So I went to a college in Denver, Colorado, called Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. And then that's where I just, you know, really got deep into learning about everything. And like, I just started drawing in my sketchbooks. And I was doing sketchbooks like 2, 3, 4 a year. You know, I was just nonstop drawing. And then that's when I first started learning digital art. And even though like in college, like I didn't really do a lot of digital art. This is the early 2000s. This is when digital stuff was new. So I was still hand drawing everything. And then kind of like towards the end of college, like when we did our portfolio review, it was basically kind of like, you're a good guy, you're funny, maybe do comedy, maybe not art, don't know if you'd be an illustrator. So like some people would take that and be defeated. I like put a chip on my shoulder and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this somehow, some way. So I graduated from college, and this is like 2001, 2002. So this is a whole different world. Like internet is still very new. So like I just started emailing people, you know, I would email like 500, 600 people. I would try to get jobs. So I started getting published in small, like local papers and magazines and like, you know, some alternative magazines, some like environmental magazines. So that's kind of where I first started getting like actually published. And that was probably like 23, 24, 25, you know. It's probably like $100. Like it was nothing life-changing, but it just meant that I had an option to, people would actually publish my work, which was something you never think will happen. And then, you know, after that, it was like the real world. You know, I was still having my job and like, there's a lot of struggling and going back and forth, and until, you know, I tried many different things, tried clothing brands, tried painting on purses, selling on Etsy when Etsy started. And we moved out to California for a couple years, and like I started doing work and band merchandising. And then that's kind of the genesis of what finally got me to kind of where I am today, because like I started doing a lot of product design, you know, tons of t-shirts. That's like what band merch is, right? So I was doing that, and then I started working for a company that was making products for other companies. And while I was working there, I was about 3 years in, and I was like, why am I not making my own products? I started listening to a podcast called Adventures in Design. In the early days, it was all about going to markets and creating your own products and building your own thing. So that kind of planted the idea in my head. And then I started making products. So the first product we ever made, this was probably 6-7 years ago, was this pen right here. That's the beginning of this whole version of Atomicchild. All right, so we showed you the very first product that we created, and now I just kind of want to give you a little bit more backstory, so it's not just like, oh, there was that, and then magically this happened. Obviously, there's a longer journey, but so I started with that one pen. I basically just put it on Instagram. It was probably like 2015. Obviously, Instagram was a little different back then. The algorithm was different, so you could really get good traction. I didn't know if my stuff would sell, so I started, after listening to the Adventures in Design podcast, I started like selling directly to customers to try to figure out, do people even want my stuff? So I made that pen, sold some on Instagram, made a couple more, sold some more. So then that's when, after listening to that podcast, gave me the idea of doing markets. So then I started like a couple patches, one hat. I think I did some keychains. Like I didn't even have stickers yet. Gave me the idea that people actually wanted to buy these products because I went and did that market. That was on the side. I was working a full-time job, was on the weekend. Because before that, I was just trying to do like the freelance game, trying to do stuff for, you know, bands, magazines, newspapers, whatever I could get in. So I was doing that for many, many years. And then when I started selling the stuff online on Instagram, and then when I started going out and doing markets, that's when I knew that I could make my own products. I didn't have to get art direction, and I could sell directly to the consumer base. I would put, actually, we can come over here. So I had like, just these generic tents you can get at Walmart. Like that's what I started with. And these tables right here that are actually used for sorting now, these are my first tables we ever used them. So it was like not a big fancy setup or anything like that. And like that was my first setup. I had like 20 products. So I did that by myself for probably a good year. And then by the second year, me and my wife Autumn started doing markets. And then we would even have to have friends come help us. We would do three a weekend. As we would do more and more, we started doing big holiday markets. We started going to conventions like the Outdoor Retailer. We started doing the Las Vegas Gift and Souvenir Show, where you go out and meet sales reps and meet new accounts. You know, when we were out doing markets, that's kind of how we initially got introduced to REI. So like that's how the initial brand started to build. It initially started in a one-bedroom apartment. Right here, and then so after the apartment, we moved up to Fort Collins, and we actually had it in a basement. Picture right here. And then after the basement, I thought the basement was huge. Like that to me was like after doing this, I had a one-bedroom. Like it started to take over me and Autumn's house. It took over our living room. It took over the one-bedroom. Like it just was a mess. Like we had people coming over, and like it started getting busier, and like started taking over the basement. And I was like, oh man. I thought the basement was gonna last forever. That's when we moved into the 1,500 square foot warehouse. Pretty sure I have a picture of that right here. I thought that to me was mind blowing to get that space, because I had, you know, worked out of a bedroom for so long and then in the basement, and then getting that was amazing. And then like, you know, after we were there for like a year and a half, we just, even through 2020, like we had pretty massive growth. And like now, you know, now we're in the 3,000 square foot warehouse. We have stickers, patches, pins, keychains, beanies, hats, socks, water bottles, and so much more. As you can see, like we're filling up. We're doing so many other things. We're going to be launching a bunch of new products. We're going to be launching. We're going to be working on apparel. You know, all that's coming. I hope that this video like kind of lets you know how the name evolved from me being in my 20s, you know, like creating the name, to how it's kind of kept it now to where I'm 42. And that it gives you like an idea of the journey of how this all started. But this gives you the journey of how this started out from one person to now. It was, you know, started out with me and the wife, you know, and then it grew. And now only reason all this is possible is because of everybody who supports us and all of my employees. Like this is impossible to do at this point by myself. So it's a whole team. It's not just me. And I hope you guys like the video. Thank you. Bye.